I'm going to show you why Dr. Evans is definitely, undeniably lying. In the aftermath of the recent documentary broadcast on Channel 4, Dr. Dewi Evans wrote a letter which has apparently been distributed to numerous newspapers. There are several problems with this letter, but in this video I'm going to examine one particularly extraordinary claim. The paragraph that I'm referring to is on the screen now, and I will read this out loud. Given the time constraints, it was inevitable that the documentary concentrated on just a couple of cases. The timing of Baby C's collapse created confusion. In my very first report, I raised concerns regarding the event late on Saturday the 13th of June 2015 that led to his collapse and death. Over the next 5 years, the dates seemed to have become confused, leading to the prosecution alleging that the assault took place the previous day. I recognised the confusion at the trial, reaffirming my original concern that the fatal assault was late on the 13th of June. I believe that Cheshire Police, the Crown Prosecution Service, and the prosecution team should set the record straight. Now, it was already considered fairly remarkable that Dr. Evans is requesting for Cheshire Police, the Crown Prosecution Service, and the prosecution team to set the record straight. But in this video, we're going to examine the claims that he's made in this paragraph. Essentially, there are two claims. The first one is that Dr. Evans changed the date because the prosecution, CPS, and/or police made mistakes in court that he recognised. The second claim is that he had included the 13th of June incident in his initial report. However, inspection of the court proceedings from Tuesday the 1st of November 2022, when Dr. Evans entered the witness box to discuss Child C, paints quite a different picture. I'm firstly going to examine 6 specific exchanges that occurred in court. During cross-examination, Defence Barrister Ben Myers KC establishes that Dr. Evans has changed his view since the court case began, and then asks him plainly about his shift in opinion.
Before today, just now, you've never suggested that splinting of the diaphragm on the 13th of June is the cause of death for Baby C, have you?
That's correct.
This is the first time we're hearing it right now, isn't it?
Yes.
Later in the cross-examination, this point is then reiterated by Myers again.
And again, just to make it quite clear, in not one of them before today, have you suggested that splinting of the diaphragm on the 13th of June was a cause of death?
That is correct.
As the cross-examination continues, Myers gives Evans numerous opportunities to explain that the police, Crown Prosecution Service, and prosecution have mixed up the two dates, and also that Evans has included this new claim in previous reports.
You have not in these reports, up until your evidence now, identified any specific way in which he was put in harm's way on the 13th of June, have you?
Not in this first report, no.
There are several reports, aren't there?
Yes.
In none of which do you mention splinting of the diaphragm on the 13th, do you?
No, you have mentioned that, and I have said, no, there isn't.
This is again reiterated in a further exchange between Myers and Evans.
In that report, a matter of months or a month or two before this trial commenced, you make no suggestion that the diaphragm had been splinted by excessive air on the 13th of June, do you?
Right. That follows, actually, perhaps it wasn't said specifically.
Can we establish that first of all?
Yes, that is correct.
You didn't.
That is correct.
And Myers provides one final opportunity for Evans in this section of cross-examination.
No, in that report, your view, Dr. Evans. I'm sorry if the question wasn't clear. At that time, you had nothing to say in August of this year as to splinting of the diaphragm on the 13th, had you?
No.
So let's go back and look at what is claimed in the letter. The two key claims are that Evans changed the date because the prosecution, Crown Prosecution Service, and/or police made mistakes in court that he recognised, and he had included the 13th of June incident in his initial report. So we can now look back at these 6 opportunities that Dr. Evans had to make either of these two claims that have just been written in this letter. So Dr. Evans claims that this collapse was in his initial report. So we see Myers ask him here, you have not, in these reports, up until your evidence now, identified any specific way in which he was put in harm's way on the 13th of June, have you? And Dr. Evans says, not in this first report, no. So he can't even make the claim that he didn't specifically mention splinting of the diaphragm. He mentioned the collapse and some sort of non-specific incident related to that. He can't even make that claim. In all that, he's given numerous opportunities to do so in the court case. However, the first claim, that Dr. Evans recognised that the dates had been mixed up and that he corrected this in court, clearly you would express that explicitly. There would be very significant and important meetings with the prosecution. It would be a major embarrassment for the prosecution that they'd mixed the dates up, and they would have to concede this, particularly during the court case. There's no indication of this whatsoever. As I say, there's these 6 opportunities that Dr. Evans has to say, well, actually, I've just noticed that we've cited the 12th of June, but in fact, I've realised the prosecution, the CPS and the police got it wrong. You know, it's the kind of thing you would tend to bring up in court if indeed that had occurred. Contrary to what is claimed in this new letter, at no stage during the court proceedings does Dr. Evans make any reference whatsoever to anyone involved with the preparation or presentation of the case having mixed up the dates, nor does he indicate that he had cited the 13th of June incident in a previous report. In fact, Evans quite clearly states the complete opposite. I want to remind people that when he was speaking in the Channel 4 documentary, Lucy's barrister Mark MacDonald noted that there is a new report from an expert who's changed his mind on a murder case. I have never known anything like this to happen. They thought she was there. They made a mistake. She wasn't there. And then finally, another new letter has emerged, which Dr. Evans wrote to Private Eye. There are some claims regarding the police in this letter as well, but I want to begin with this paragraph related to medical claims. Firstly, an injection of air into the stomach would compromise the breathing of a tiny baby, quickly destabilising him. An injection of air directly into the bloodstream would be even more catastrophic. Whilst one cannot exclude the former, the latter explanation is a more likely explanation for his collapse. One cannot rule out the possibility of his suffering from a combination of both. Either is indicative of inflicted injury, where the perpetrator would know that their action would place a vulnerable baby in harm's way. This evidence led to the jury finding Lucy Letby guilty of the baby's murder. Now, that might be superficially convincing for someone who doesn't know much about the case, or indeed someone who's a bit thick. But there is just the minor inconvenience that this isn't the diagnosis that Dr. Evans gave in court and is in no way consistent with what he said in court. Of course, in court, Dr. Evans stated that the actions of Lucy Letby splintered the diaphragm of child C, and he also said this in relation to other infants. He didn't say anything about compromising the infants, and the comments about the bloodstream are irrelevant because that isn't what he said in court. Now let's move on to the paragraphs related to the police in this letter. The clinical facts are straightforward. Baby C was a tiny baby who was responding satisfactorily to treatment for pneumonia until his unexpected collapse. My preliminary report dated the 7th of November 2017 noted that I have concerns regarding the unexpected collapse of baby C at around 1100 hours on the 13th of June 2015. I added that I would advise scrutinising the staffing present at the time. Lucy Letby's name as a suspect was not known to me at the time. See how it's always necessary for him to refer to that. As I've said in other videos, of course he wrote many reports when he did know Lucy Letby's name, and of course he changed his opinion on this when he'd already been in the same room as Lucy Letby in court. And there was no record of her presence in the infant's clinical notes. Cheshire Police's attention to detail confirmed that the infant's collapse occurred when in Lucy Letby's presence after the baby's designated nurse had gone for a break. Lucy Letby's involvement was noted in more detail in evidence given at the Thirlwell inquiry on the 9th of October 2024. So let's compare these two paragraphs. Cheshire Police's attention to detail confirmed that the infant's collapse occurred when in Lucy Letby's presence after the baby's designated nurse had gone for a break. Over the next 5 years, the dates seem to have become confused, leading to the prosecution alleging that the assault took place the previous day. I recognised the confusion at the trial, reaffirming my original concern that the fatal assault was late on the 13th of June. I believe that Cheshire Police, the CPS and the prosecution team should set the record straight. So remember, these paragraphs are written just weeks apart. In one of them, Evans praises Cheshire Police's attention to detail, and in the other letter, he claims that they got the dates mixed up. Let's go through the timeline now of everything that Dr. Evans has said in relation to Child C and in relation to him changing his mind. So, first of all, he denied that he'd ever changed his mind. This is in the BBC. He later reaffirmed these claims, speaking with The Guardian. Dr. Evans then submitted or conceded that he'd submitted a new report which clarified the situation. Except that he's supposed to have clarified this in court. It's supposed to be a mix-up over the dates, according to this new letter, and he's supposed to have corrected this in court. Except that we know for a fact that he never did any such thing because he's in the witness box for 4 hours and he never makes any reference to anything remotely related to this. He also repeatedly cited the 12th of June as being the key collapse, even going into the court case and also in multiple reports, and then he changed that at the last minute during the court case because Lucy Letby wasn't on duty. I'll just mention briefly, after this new report was submitted, the CPS refused to hand it over. So to rewind back to the publication of the Guardian article, days after this, the Guardian revealed that Dr. Evans had conceded that he'd changed his mind during email correspondence. Then Dr. Evans appeared in BBC Panorama, conceding that he'd changed his mind, but claiming that it didn't matter which diagnosis or day that he'd used. He then gave what can be described as a remarkable performance during the recently broadcast Channel 4 documentary. And now he has written 2 letters within weeks of one another, possibly days of one another, which completely contradict one another and, needless to say, contradict numerous other things that he said previously. Oh, and let me just briefly mention that he wrote to Channel 5 contradicting himself again, and that he's praised the Court of Appeal several times, even though we know that the Court of Appeal verdict contradicts his own public statements. In fact, we know that the Court of Appeal repeats the theory that he has now jettisoned in relation to other infants in the case, which is a perfectly natural thing for the Court of Appeal to do because that's what he said in court. In conclusion, there are 3 simple points to make. Firstly, the claims made in the letter that I highlighted throughout this video are simply untrue. Secondly, it is ironic that this new private eye letter has been published in an attempt to defend Dr. Evans, as it simply reveals new information that makes him look worse than he did already, and he has contradicted himself once again. Thirdly, Dr. Evans is practically the definition of an unreliable witness.